The Dragon Prince is coming out with its 7th season this December the 19th, and to prepare us for that, they played the first episode for us over at New York Comic Con, just like they tend to with every season. Now, Hailey couldn't record the entire episode, of course, but she was able to give me the details so I could make a breakdown of what to expect from the first episode. Just keep in mind that while we did also get one scene of Cosmo and Astrid released from the episode and a cool poster, I am hearing all of this secondhand, so may not have gotten some of the details right. Every season in the second arc of The Dragon Prince has been updating the opening to focus on a different character being picked up by Aaravos in a different state. This time it was Claudia again, but she apparently looked different than the previous opening, and when picked up by Aaravos, she didn't turn to stone. This likely mirrored what we saw at the end of Season 6, which was Aaravos picking up Claudia and raising her up to look at the world around him. Previously, Claudia had helped Aaravos escape his prison because he had tried to help bring back her dad Viren from the dead before he made his sacrifice to save the others. In this new episode, Aaravos explains that if Viren can be saved again, it would be only by pulling him out of the world called the In-Between, a place where souls go when they experience great trauma and have unfinished business on the planet. This could very easily be the case with Viren, but there's no way to know without just ripping an opening to the In-Between and seeing who comes out apparently. It is from this that Aaravos' real plan has become clear, as this would be where his own daughter Leola would undoubtedly be. What with her traumatic last moments with her father letting her die, and still just being a child who could have had such a massive influence on the world beyond what she had already set in motion. However, in order to open the In-Between, Aaravos says they need to find a Moon Primal Stone, something that would take 100 years to find, or they could make one. Claudia agrees to this, and Aaravos reveals that the ingredient they will need will be in the land of the unicorns, with Claudia being noted as finding a unicorn horn for her father before. Unicorns can be found in a place Aaravos calls the Garden of Innocence, which appears to be a sort of Garden of Eden within the show. For this, they need a map, which is hidden at a place called the Puzzle House that Claudia visited as a child. This is something explored in the Dragon Prince graphic novel of the same name, where the Puzzle House is explained as the home of the magical teacher to Viren. This sets off the journey for Season 7, which will have Claudia running to the Puzzle House, then to the Garden of Innocence, with the Dragon Prince kids likely right behind them. The next big twist here is that by using the Primal Stone, Aaravos wants to invert the Moon Nexus as a whole, which implies a great devastation, and more than just Viren and Leola walking through it. The show has become increasingly mythological, with large parallels to the story of Lucifer, the Garden of Eden narrative, and the Book of Enoch, all relying on the idea of forbidden knowledge being given to us by misleading tricksters. And of course, in Christianity and Judaism, there's the resurrection of the dead at the end of the current world and the beginning of the new world, which seems to match the idea of the resurrection of the dead from the In-Between. This appears to be an apocalyptic event even more devastating than Leola's gift of magic to humans would have been, with Aaravos changing the balance of the primal magic sources entirely and the balance of life and death. Across Season 7, the first 6 episodes will undoubtedly be about the journey there and setting up the characters for their final resolutions in the season finale, but those last 3 episodes are probably going to be severely epic. In order to travel with Claudia, Aaravos apparently was able to shrink down his body, leaving his mass behind as a new island that the others go to investigate. While doing this downsize, Aaravos reveals he can take on many forms, becoming different species of elves before disguising himself as a human mage when the others arrive. Here, he tries to give Callum a red apple, which is obviously cursed, but they realize that this is clearly an imposter. As for Callum and Rayla, they of course end up making it back to Ezran and the others, where they find the corpse of Sol Regem left behind by Aaravos. This is important because it's said that a bite from a noble dragon might be the one thing that can stop Aaravos now that he is back. The poster for this season nods to this, with it showing Aaravos holding the skull of Sol Regem as it begins to fall apart. One really interesting thing they did with this episode was remind us that Runan is actually responsible for the death of Ezran's father. Rayla had been hopeful to get Runan and her parents back, and at the end of Book 6, she managed to get Runan back while letting her parents move on. Ezran, however, has not forgotten the person responsible for his father's death, and is pretty freaking miffed about how casual Callum is about the whole thing, like he didn't think it through at all. I mean, as the audience, we understand Callum's point of view, a lot has happened, and Runan was essentially a slave to a story that Viren and really Aaravos had set in motion. And there's a chance for everyone to find peace now. But he did literally kill Ezran's father, and for that, Ezran ordered Soren to arrest him. Runan's husband, meanwhile, ruins that the changes in the magical lotus flower representing Runan now means he is dead. But the other Moonshadow elves try to assure him that this means that Runan has returned. This will be interesting to explore in Season 7 after Runan on being on pause for so long, and it's actually so perfect that it wasn't until the last season that he was brought back here in order for Ezran to be forced to confront the ideas of redemption and forgiveness the way he expects everyone else to in order for them to get along. Finally, another interesting part of this episode is the story of Cosmo and Astrid. According to Hailey, the episode opened with a scene of Cosmo in a great vision and Astrid trying to pull him out of it. Here, he explains that the Dark One has returned, meaning Aaravos, and he's going to lead the world into an age of darkness. Later in the episode, however, Astrid insists that she doesn't want to be like the other celestial elves, who claim that they have to stay out of the affairs of the other elves and humans as much as possible. Astrid, however, wants to have an influence on the world. She wants to affect the sequence of events that are currently destined to play out. So, despite the others trying to stop her, she decides to take off her blindfold and do something to help the other characters. In the officially released scene of this, we see Astrid standing with Cosmo on top of the Star Scraper, where she takes off her blindfold to see the sun and is overwhelmed by it. The Celestial Elves spend their entire lives in blindfolds when not experiencing a moonless night up in the stars, which helps them see the future. By taking off her blinds and seeing the sunlight, she's giving up some of her gift of prophecy in order to go out into the world and try to help Callum and the others. Despite others trying to stop her, Astrid seems determined to go out into the world and be a part of its story, and I'm very curious about her journey and how it's going to go across the rest of the season. I think she could end up playing a very important role in trying to stop Aaravos, not just because of the information she has that she thinks can help them, but because of her similarities to Leola. Aaravos loved Leola for what she was willing to do for the others, and giving magic to humans was just a part of that, even though it was forbidden. She could not foresee just how dire those consequences might be, and here in this episode, Astrid may be setting herself up for the same story. She may, in her attempts to help, lead the gang down a dark path that makes things even worse than the other celestial elves are currently predicting. But she may also find something merciful in Aaravos' judgment because of how much her actions resemble that of his daughter. I don't think that will be the final thing that stops Aaravos' plan, and quite frankly, I think he's actually going to win and go through with it. So far, the show is getting very mythological, and with the big mythologies talking about the eventual resurrection, it makes sense that Xadia would be brought into some new crazy age, where the moon nexus is inverted, whatever that means, and where the people with trauma and unfinished business are still able to exist. This could be a horrifying zombie land, but it could also be a chill, liberal, eco-friendly, gender-non-conforming era of diversity where the living learn to coexist with the dead, who can work through their trauma peacefully, before one day ascending to wherever it is dead people go in this show. I don't know, probably hell. But so far, this is just one episode, and even with the epic stuff already revealed in this episode, I have to imagine that Season 7 will be a season of bangers with tons of reveals and twists in every episode, especially with the first 3 always being a setup for the rest of the season. But what do you think? And if you think about it hard enough, does it become true? Let me know if you have the power of manifestation in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys next time.